Hello, everybody. This is Brian Ankney with AutoSuccess magazine. I'd like to thank you all for taking the time out of your day today to join us. Today, my guest is Jim Roche. He's the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Managed Services at Xtime. And we've got a really great presentation for you today. You're going to learn a lot. But before we get started, a couple things about everybody is if you haven't joined AutoSuccess webinars yet on Facebook, it's a group. Please do. You just type it AutoSuccess webinars into the search at the top of your screen. It'll bring up the group, you request to join, and from there it's a great place to interact with our speakers. You can suggest topics that you'd like for me to cover, and most importantly, you can interact with each other. You're all going to learn things on these webinars that are things you can't implement in a day, and so you're going to have successes, you're going to have failures. Please share those with each other and learn from each other's experiences. Now, we're going to take all the questions at the end of the webinar, so depending on what type of device you're on, if you're on a tablet, a PC, or a laptop, on the right side of your screen there should be a Go to Webinar bar, and near the bottom is questions. You hit the plus sign and you can type in questions. Now we are going to hold all the questions to the end, but I encourage you to type them in as we go, because that way when we get to the end of the presentation we can jump right into your questions and you don't forget something that was something that you wanted to learn more about. Now if you are on an Android or an Apple, there will be either at the top or the bottom of your screen, depending on which one you're on, you'll see a question mark, and that question mark is where you push to ask questions. So again, we are going to hold all the questions until the end of the webinar. I'd like to introduce Jim Roche, Senior Vice President of Marketing and Managed Services at Xtime. Jim, are you with us?
I am, thank you.
Fantastic. Please take it away, my friend.
Super. Thanks, Brian, and welcome to everyone on the call. Thanks for taking time out of your busy days to attend. Our topic today will be why the ownership experience is the key to service retention. And as part of the talk, we'll bust 3 myths that seem to be part of the everyday thinking that we see today in fixed ops at dealerships. So we'll just turn our attention to the screen and start right away. Where I normally like to talk is sort of to establish the beginning point of the foundation for a presentation. And for today's topic, the starting point is really very universal, and that is to talk about what the dealership objective is, really the objective of any business, and that goal is to grow profitably. And in the automotive context, that's a little challenging because these days vehicle sales margins are on the decline. We've known for years that new vehicle sales margins are trending downward, but over the last 10 years we also see that used car margins are trending down somewhat. So if your objective is profitable growth, this presents quite a challenge. According to Cox Automotive Research, less than 1 in 3 service visits in the United States takes place at a franchise dealer. So if you factor in the average dealership service gross profit, which is in the 55 to 60% range, coupled to that there is a lot of headroom for growth, you've got to consider fixed ops as one of the prime targets for profitable growth. When we think about growth, there's really only 3 areas of control that we as managers have to manage or try to propel that growth. The first is you want to increase the number of people visiting your business, or you can increase the amount of money those people visiting your business spend, and the third is you can decrease costs. We all as managers spend most of our days pushing and pulling one or more of these levers. Your growth strategy should be very simple at the highest level. You want to keep the customers that you have, and you want to take the customers that you don't have. You want to take them from your competition. But again, the context here is that our objective is profitable growth. And so you have to recalibrate your thinking, your growth strategy, and realize that to optimize profitable growth, you have to go after the lowest customer acquisition cost, or CAC. And so the lowest CAC is keeping the customers you have. And that's why customer retention is really the foundation for profitable growth. Unfortunately, in the automotive context, brand loyalty is challenged. The average loyalty for all brands in the U.S. is 1.5%. And to put that starkly, what that means is that about 1 out of every 2 people doesn't buy from your brand again. It's a huge defection problem, and Even the top performers, Ford at 64%, Mercedes and Toyota tied at about 58%, that's really nothing to write home about. So there is a lot of opportunity to grow our customer retention in order to drive that profitable growth. When you think about retention or loyalty, the expense benefits are well understood. According to NADA, the average customer acquisition cost for every new vehicle sold in the United States is $612 per vehicle. And again, just to be clear, that is Tier 3 money. Those are checks dealers write. It costs you $612 in marketing costs for every new vehicle you sell. So for every customer you retain, you save the majority of that $612. As a matter of fact, according to John Wiley & Sons, they state that it costs 10 times more to obtain a new customer than it does to retain an existing one. So clearly there is a huge expense benefit to loyalty. The revenue benefits of loyalty are also pretty well understood. Recently, General Motors said that for every 1% increase in sales retention, that transfers $700 million in increased revenue annually. For a 1% increase in sales retention, $700 million increase in revenue. And if you do the math, that averages out to about $150 for every dealer in the country. So again, a compelling reason from an expense reduction standpoint to increase loyalty, but also a revenue impact if you increase loyalty. And you know this. Recent Xtime research showed that 64% of dealers said that customer retention is their primary concern. And just to be clear, you didn't say it's a concern or one of my concerns. 64% of you said that's your primary concern. So the need to improve retention is beginning to permeate the industry, becoming better and better understood. So now that we've established our premise, which is that retention is necessary to drive profitable growth, let's take a look at some companies that are reshaping the customer experience. And to look at this, I look outside of automotive. I always start with what I call the gold standard, which is Amazon. I think everyone's had the Amazon experience, but just to do a quick overview, it is truly a case study and a marvel in reducing the barriers to purchase and own. Typically what happens with Amazon is you get an email about something that piques your interest. You click on a picture or a link, you're taken into a shopping site where you can look at goods, compare goods, look at accessories, look at reviews, compare pricing. You drag and drop your purchase into a shopping cart, you pay online, and then you get an email confirmation of your purchase, and then on an ongoing basis you get regular emails updating you on the status of your purchase until it arrives, and then afterwards you'll be asked to rate the purchase experience. It's just a marvel of taking the friction out of the ownership experience. Another company that's very interesting is the disruptor, Uber. Uber is disrupting the decades-old taxi industry, and they walloped them. They didn't even see it coming. For those of you who haven't used it, Uber is an app on your phone, and just like the taxi industry, you use Uber when you're going to want to go from point A to point B. But what is really cool about it is you pull up Uber, it will tell you, it will first ask you what kind of car do you want. Do you want a limo? Do you want a regular car? It will tell you what the cost is going to be. It will let you look at a picture or ratings of your driver. When you click yes, pick me up, it'll tell you how many minutes until they're there. It'll show you a picture of how far away they are. You get in the car, you get to your destination, you get out, it's automatically billed to your credit card. It's a wonderful experience, and it blindsided the taxi industry because they thought that they had a monopoly on the transportation. But let's look at something that's even more mundane. I don't know how many of you have ordered a Domino's pizza recently, but you get a coupon for a Domino's. You click on the link, you go to their website, you configure your pizza. It tells you when it's being staged in the kitchen, when it's in the oven, and then when it's in the car, and how many minutes until it gets to you. It's a fantastic experience, and here's the really amazing thing. I can get that experience for a $10 pizza, but I cannot get it for a $40,000 car. Yet, it is companies like these and many, many others that are shaping the expectations that we as consumers have of our service providers. If the dealership experience was like Amazon, you would get an email promotion telling you something that you needed with your vehicle. It would be personalized. It would have context and relevance. You would click on the email. It would take you into a shopping site where you could shop for an appointment for your vehicle. You could look at pricing. You could look at reviews. You could look at accessories or other things that you may need. You drag and drop your goods into a shopping cart. Pay, or you would be told what to expect to pay, and you would get an email confirmation. Since it's a vehicle taken to a dealership, additionally, when you arrived to get the work done, you would be greeted by someone at your vehicle with a mobile device. They would know who you are and why you. They would perform a walk around of the vehicle, price any other necessary things. You could sign with your finger and go on your way. You would get regular status updates to the device of your choice. If you needed to confirm or approve anything else, you would do a one-click confirm, and then you could pay online. Again, trying to provide an optimal ownership experience and take friction out of the process. Now, with that in mind, let's compare experiences that Amazon experienced to today's typical dealer experience. And again, I want to be clear, I'm not picking on anyone's dealership or anyone on the phone. I'm providing a generalization of today's typical dealership experience. You get invited to the dealership by receiving a series of coupons by the U.S. mail. They come into your mailbox. Somewhere in there, it may tell you to go to a website to schedule an appointment. If you go to a website, it may have an email request form. You think that you're filling out a real appointment, but in fact, what you're filling out is an email that then gets sent to someone who requests the appointment for you. Unfortunately, 57% of the time, those emails go unanswered. That's the reason that when you arrive at the dealership, someone greets you with a clipboard who has no idea why you're there or who you are. It's a broken process. So after you've dropped your car off and you depart, you call looking for a status. Someone who is punching information into a 30-year-old accounting system tries to give you a status and provide you a satisfying ownership experience. The average wait time when you call into a dealership fixed ops is 5 minutes. A quarter of the time the call goes unanswered. So I think you can see the stark contrast that we're painting here is that there is a lot of headroom to improve the ownership experience as compared to other experiences that we as consumers have. What's preventing us from improving the experience? Well, there are a number of factors. One of them is that if you map the customer journey, what you see is that there are many, many fragmented systems that don't talk to one another along the way. In the example I just gave you, for example, you got a coupon that was generated from some mailing database, yet when you go in and try and type your information into another system, there's no continuity. It doesn't know who you are. So you have a series of siloed information buckets, and it prevents you from having a seamless process. The example I might give you, even though it sounds a little ludicrous, is if Amazon had something like this, when you went and began to place an order with Amazon, halfway through the ordering process, it might stop you and ask you to enter all your information in again. Now, when I do in-person public speaking, the audience laughs because everybody's bought from Amazon and it seems kind of ludicrous. Yet when you have fragmented systems, that's one of the results. It is a very broken process, and this prevents consumers from having a very satisfying experience. You need to have a platform, and the reason you need to have a platform is that old tools that don't talk to each other prevent that seamless experience, and they make things unnecessarily complex. Paper-driven processes are harder to learn, they're harder to enforce, it's harder to recruit, Gen Y or millennials and bring them into the dealership workforce. A single integrated platform solution is optimal. A single technology that has integration across the entire experience allows you to deliver a seamless experience very much along the lines of what we discussed with Amazon as an example. Other things, factors that are changing, are that the differentiators that we relied on historically have changed. So traditionally, product was the key differentiator, you know. You had a beautiful vehicle and a beautiful design. Yet based on a recent report by Deloitte, product differentiation is becoming more and more difficult. Innovations both in design and manufacturing have essentially created parity. You almost can't go wrong. The cars are all beautiful. You can get them at any price point. You can get them in any configuration. Expectations are evolving, and a differentiated experience is what is rising. For Gen Y automotive consumers, the customer experience is 3x more important than the vehicle design. Now, somebody like me who's been around the automotive industry 30 years, that's hard to wrap my head around, but that's what the data shows. The experience is becoming more important than even the vehicle itself. Of course, what's also happening, as we previously discussed, is that higher customer expectations. Part of our recent market research, which was done earlier this year, we asked you, what do you see, what are the trends that are impacting your service operations? Higher expectations from customers was at the top of the list. Customers want more than just their vehicle fixed. They also want a good interpersonal experience. They want easy and flexible pricing. They want the vehicle done when promised. They want fair and transparent pricing. They want to see it when they make the appointment, and they want it to be consistent. They don't want one price from your website, another from the service lane, and yet another from the cashier. They want good, robust communications. And more, as we all know now, they want the amenities. We want the Wi-Fi. We want the coffee bar, and a variety of other amenities that we're seeing coming. And these trends are unstoppable because they are already embedded outside of automotive and are raising consumer expectations. You can conclude that the traditional processes don't work in today's world. As a matter of fact, to quote here, many of our shoppers don't like any of the processes that we have on our stores right now, and they're going to find choices or someone is going to jump in. And as much as I would love to say those are Xtime's wise words, in fact, those are the wise words of the CEO of Hyundai, Dave Zakowski. There is a brand that is really doing some incredibly progressive things to try and contemporize the ownership experience. So for automotive customers, again, it's the experience. One last data point for you. This is from IMR Incorporated. If you look at the top there, they ask people, this is just for oil changes, the old commoditized oil change, why would you return to a dealership? 40% of people said that a good experience is what drives me to the dealership. That's great in and of itself, but you know, we index so much on pricing. Look toward the middle. Low prices or fair prices, 3% and 1%. The influence of pricing is a myth. It is the experience that drives retention. And consumers crave it. Consumers will pay more for a better experience. According to Auto Trader's 2015 Car Buyer of the Future study, 54% of people said they would pay you more if you would give them their chosen experience. They would pay you more versus going after the lowest price. Now, I'm not saying that there are no consumers out there where the low price is the driver, but what I am saying that people think that that is the only driver, and that is majority of people, and that is a myth. The lowest price is rarely the driver. A fair price and not feel like you made a mistake or you were taken advantage of is the more important driver. So you don't have to be stuck on lowest price. You do have to be focused on providing the best ownership experience. And you understand that the experience is important. As part of Xtime's research, we asked customers, what's more important, the repair or the experience itself? Now, these are dealership people. 94%, almost unanimous, 94% said that the experience is more important than the actual repair. What that means is that the repair itself has become commoditized. The experience you build around it is the foundation for retention. Now, before I go to the next slide, I just want to do a quick review because I'm still somewhat surprised at the next slide. So our premise is that what we all must strive for is profitable growth. Retention is the engine for profitable growth, and the ownership experience is what drives retention. And everyone knows this. Yet, when we ask dealers, do your current systems provide a superior ownership experience? 83% said no. 83% said their systems do not provide a superior ownership experience. And therein is the disconnect and the opportunity, because if you think about all of the experiences that we have as consumers that are so great outside of automotive, they are technology driven. Systems play an important part in driving that superior ownership experience. So with that in mind, Xtime provides services to almost 8,000 dealers in the United States. And we recently took a look and asked ourselves, what can we learn in terms of intelligence from all these dealers that we serve, and start talking about things that I think some of us still think are really is what consumers want or how dealers want to behave, and we're going to bust those myths. So there's three that we're going to talk about. The first is that most service customers only want to come in the morning. The second is that recalls are bad. And the third is that tablets complicate the write-up experience. In other words, too much technology. So the first, most service customers are only available in the morning, or customers want to come in the morning and they want to pick their car up at night after work. Everybody's got to be at work. If I had a nickel for every time I heard this one, I'd be retired. And in fact, if you just look at the data, it shows that customers want appointments throughout the day. Only 28% of customers want to come in before 9 o'clock, and only a little more than half come in before 11. 56% of customers come in between 6 and 11, which means 44% of appointments come in between 11 o'clock and 4 in the afternoon. That is remarkable because that kind of goes against sort of the myth that we've perpetuated in the industry. A couple of things you must do. One is you must have a real appointment system in order to enable this wonderful ownership experience. And the second and most important, you have to tell your customers. Because frankly, the reason most customers come in the morning and there's the lineup, it's because we've trained them over decades. You need to get here in the morning, you need to get here in the morning. We need to untrain them. We need to provide them a system so that they can self-serve, and then we need to let them know that system is available so that they can book an appointment at their convenience and they can come in whenever they want. And in fact, if the objective is profitable growth, doing that is demonstrably better. You can see here we've compared walk-ins and appointments. By the way, this analysis that I'm showing you is across about 6 million appointments made over a 6-month period last year. Appointments spent more by $61 than walk-ins did. And retention, 1-year service retention for appointments was substantially higher than for walk-ins. The reason is very, very simple. When you have an appointment, you've budgeted the time and you've budgeted the money to some degree in your head. When you have an appointment, because you've budgeted the time and the money and your expectations are handled, you have a better experience. Therefore, you're more than likely to go back. Very few of us have the time to want to hip-hop around from vendor to vendor. If we find somebody who is pleasant, who can take care of our needs at a reasonable price, we will go back there, because who wants to go through the pain of trying to find an alternative? So walk-ins are good, appointments are better. We also see through the online and mobile channel that the spend is going up. So we're looking at a 3-year period, appointments, dollars per RO, customer pay and warranty, it's up over 9% over that 3-year period. Walk-ins over the same period, trending down 1%. So again, appointments spend more money than walk-ins. I'm not saying don't do any walk-ins, because you have to. What I'm saying is you need to start balancing that, you need to start tilting that more and more toward appointments because it has an immediate financial gain and it has a long-term retention benefit. Additionally, appointments increase, not only do appointments increase dollars per RO, but if you look there at the bottom, what you see is that appointments save money. Online appointments, customers are self-serving. So processing 60 appointments a month saves $300 because we estimate that it costs you about $5 for every time someone calls in and someone has to pick up the phone and process them in the dealership or in the service department. So not only do appointments spend more, they cost you less. So we'll go to myth number 2. Recalls are bad. And in fact, if you look at the data, you can take recall appointments are a positive today and they become a future positive. About 1/4 of appointments are recall related. So tremendous volume of appointments these days, no shock there. The average dealership sees about 84 recall appointments each month. But good news number 1 is there's an additional customer pay that comes from those recall visits of almost $10,000 per month on average. So you're seeing additional dealership revenue from those recalls. 50%, about 1/2 of appointments, generate some form of customer pay. But here's the great thing. A lot of times, so you can't get recalls done anywhere but a dealership, franchise dealership, and typically, almost exclusively, the recalls, the consumer doesn't have to pay for them. So obviously, when they come to the dealership, they're getting a safety-related item taken care of. That's satisfying. They're predisposed, well, if I'm already here, I'll get some things done. If you can provide that great experience when they're there for the recall, again, it drives your retention up. If the customer's never visited you, you'll capture the customer. If the customer used to be one of yours but they've defected, by providing them that great experience, you recapture that lost soul and you improve your retention. This is all through simply managing recalls in a positive way. And the third myth, tablets are too much technology. They don't improve the write-up experience. They overcomplicate it. None of the data supports that. What you're looking at here is a slide derived from J.D. Power data. If you look at the 2 bar charts there, about 23% of dealers use tablets on the service drive, 77% don't. The average customer satisfaction score for tablet users is 851 versus 779 for non-tablet users. 851 versus 779, a substantial increase in CSI. Is that surprising? Well, let's think about what the tablet experience is. You don't pull into the drive, get out, and have to walk and find somebody to help you. Someone comes with a mobile device, they come to your car, they greet you. If it's synchronized with your appointment system, they know who you are, they know why you're there, so you don't have to go through the whole rigmarole of setting your appointment again. They can do a walk around quickly, they can recommend other work, they can check recalls, you can sign with your finger, you're on your way. So it is convenient, it is time efficient. You're using a modern device that have become ubiquitous in the consumer experience, and obviously all of those things add up to increased customer satisfaction. However, it isn't customer satisfaction that drives retention. Retention is the goal, right? So, in fact, the tablets increase retention. And I'm pleased to report to you that, in fact, the evidence shows that tablets do improve retention. On average, retention is improved by tablet users for 9.4 percentage points. This is a bit of an eye chart, though, so let me tell you how to read it. I'm looking at the bars charts at the bottom. If you look at the one on the left, it says that utilization of tablets is between 0 and 10%. That means that less than 10% of repair orders were processed using a tablet, less than 10%. Yet, customer retention went up 5.7%. Skip all the way over to the extreme right. It says tablets were used to write 90% or more of all repair orders, 90% or more. Retention went up 12.4%. If you look from left to right, it is almost a linear up and to the right. So the conclusion is inescapable. Use a tablet a little bit, it helps retention. Use a tablet a lot, You even improve your retention more. You can't go wrong by using tablets because they improve satisfaction, and a satisfied customer who's had a great experience is a retained customer. So in fact, with the specific topic of tablets on the service drive, it does improve retention. It's not wasted technology. So if you're trying to improve retention or increase revenue, drive that profitable growth, increase your customer satisfaction, even just improve your online reputation, all of those things come back. You've got to improve the ownership experience. All of those key performance areas that we spend so much time looking at and paying attention to in the dealership all come back to that all-important ownership experience. If you take nothing else away from today's presentation, please take this slide. As some people would call this the hero slide. This demonstrates that the ownership experience is key to retention. Again, a little bit of an eye chart, so let me help you by explaining it to you. If you look on the left, those percents starting at 0 and going to 80, that is repurchase intention percentage. How likely am I to buy another vehicle from that brand? Repurchase intention percentage. Across the bottom, the stars, how satisfied was I with the experience? And then if you look at the colored lines, those are how much do I like the car, the product itself. How much do I like the car? Well, the amazing thing is that if you look at the bottom line, the red one, which essentially says, I hate the car, but I had a 5-star experience. My repurchase intention is the same as the green line. I love the car, but I only had a 3.5-star experience. The repurchase intention is the same. Love the car, but great experience, or excuse me, hate the car and great experience, love the car, but okay experience. Look at how the repurchase intention moves up and to the right when you take them from 4 stars to 5. This is the power of the ownership experience and why we're evangelizing, driving profitable growth from retention by providing a better ownership experience. Every angle, every piece of data that you look at supports the premise that if you provide that great ownership experience, it's going to yield that retention dividend, which is going to drive profitable growth. So just a quick recap. 64% of you say that customer retention is your primary concern. 94% of dealers say that the experience is more important than the repair itself, yet 83% of dealers don't have systems that enable a superior ownership experience. And a superior ownership experience is what drives service retention, which drives owner loyalty, which ultimately drives profitable growth. And with that, Brian, that brings us to the end of the formal presentation. I think you mentioned we were going to try for some questions. If you have any, happy to squeeze those in.
Okay. For everybody, this is Brian again. Again, if you have questions, please type them into the right. We've got a few here to get started with. Let's see. First question here, Jim, says, obviously Xtime offers Spectrum, which has 4 modules. Do you have to start with all 4, or can you get them one at a time to fit your dealership's unique situation?
Right, yes. So Xtime Spectrum is indeed 4 modules. Invite, which is essentially communicating to the customer. Schedule, which is setting the appointment. Engage, which is the service lane process. And Inspect, which is the MPI. You can buy them as individual modules, although obviously if your objective is to improve the ownership experience, having all of them is optimal. But you don't have to get all of them. You can get one or any combination.
Okay. You referenced a lot of market research. When was this research done, Jim?
Okay, thank you. Great question. So there's kind of 3 buckets of research that I reference. Most of what you've heard, so for example, the 64% of dealers who believe retention is their primary concern, 94% saying that the experience is more important than repair, 83% saying that they don't have systems. All of those are from Xtime market research, and that market research was done in Q1 of 2016. So it is very very contemporary in terms of it reflecting the voice of the marketplace. In a couple of places, I cited Cox Automotive research, and that was done in 2015. And then in one or two places, there were some research I cited that was outside, and I think the oldest piece of research in here is from 2014. The few that I cited that are non-Xtime or non-Cox are between 2014 and 2016.
Okay. Here's another question. It says, if I already have Service Pro, what would I gain by getting Inspect powered by Service Pro?
Well, you wouldn't, because in fact they're the same thing. So Service Pro used to be a company called ASR Pro. It was acquired by DealerTrack, which is now a part of Cox Automotive. So Service Pro is essentially Inspect powered by Service Pro. However, because Service Pro is now part of Xtime, we are doing lots of upgrades to Service Pro, including building the integrations to the Inspect powered by Service Pro tool. So for example, being able to seamlessly integrate that tablet experience in the service lane to what the technician is looking at back in the shop when he's got the vehicle on the lift. So there may not be, it is the same product looking at that single module, but the integration with the other modules is what will deliver that better ownership experience.
All right. Jim, what are the most important pieces of the experience? And I'm guessing they mean customer experience. Where should a store start?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can't advocate starting big because it's just too big. So the most logical place to start, in my viewpoint, is with scheduling. Because when you think about scheduling, what you have to do when you implement a proper scheduling system is you have to inventory and take control of your shop. You've got to understand technicians and skills, the hours of operation and pricing, you get your menus in there. So you're taking control of your shop by going through that scheduling process and implementing that first and letting your customers know about it. Once you've got scheduling in, then you can either move to the left or the right of that by implementing the Invite product or the Engage product, or even Inspect. But I almost always say start small, start bite-sized, start with schedule, because that allows you to really inventory and take control of your shop, and that makes the subsequent steps much easier.
All right. Jim, how do I determine the experience my customers want?
There isn't any single experience that your customers want. So trying to distill it down to a single experience is very difficult. But there are some common things that we know just universally about consumers. First of all, what consumers really want is value, convenience, and trust. And I'm not talking about in the automotive context, although it is certainly in the automotive context. It's for anything. So the definition of value is very simple. Consumers want to know, what do I need? When can I get it? And how much does it cost? And I need to know that whenever I'm touching your business. If I want the answer to those questions at 8 o'clock on Sunday night, I'd like to be able to get an answer, which leads us to the second one, convenience, which is provide those answers to me when it's convenient for me and in the method I like. If I'd like to find them out by calling you, great. If I'd like to find them out by a mobile device, great. If I'd like to find that out on the web, great. You have to meet the consumers where it's convenient for them. And trust, the third component, is something that I touched on during the presentation. Trust is quite simply this. When I ask you these questions and I get the answer, when I interact with your enterprise, always provide me the same answer. I do not want to go to your website and get told that there's a $29 oil change. only to arrive in the service drive and be told it's a $39 oil change, only to pick up the car at the cashier and be told it's a $49 oil change. So you have value, convenience, and trust. So those are that's sort of the foundation. And you enable all these things with technology, convenience in particular, but by having one system that lives in the cloud, you also enable value and trust. And then the second thing that I would say just generally, even though I guess this is pretty much common sense, is you will have standards from your OEM as well as a process that your dealership follows that you intuitively know that most of your customers like. You have to invest in technology that provides you the flexibility to not have a single monolithic and rigid process, but a process that accommodates all kinds of things, right? You want to have a scheduling system that can accommodate customers who come to the drive and on a service lane. You want to have an inspect tool that does the same thing. You know, if you want to have regular service reminders going out that no one touches and they run automatically, then you need to have a communication package that does that. But if you also, on the spur of the moment, because something is happening locally in your marketplace, you want to be able to send a quick communication to those customers, you need to have that. So you need to take a look at the business and how you've operated, and then ask yourself, how do I systemize all of these things that I know I need to provide? How do I bring that technology to bear? But again, to come back to reiterate the first part, it is the value, it is the convenience, and it is the trust. Hopefully that answered the question.
Yeah, I think that was a great answer, Jim. Let's see. Here's another question. Is scheduling based on shop loading and or tech skills?
It is based on, so the shop load is derived from your tech skills, the length of your shift, how many technicians you have, how many days they operate, and so forth and so on. But there are two viewpoints to how there is the human element and there is the vehicle element. The human element is when the customer gets scheduled to come into the service drive, and then they interact with the person for the write-up, and then when the car is scheduled to go into the shop, right? So two different things. You have to schedule the human for their part, and you have to schedule the vehicle for when the mechanical part is being taken care of. Xtime's system accommodates all of these. You know, your traditional dispatching, shop methodology, teams, lateral teams, all the variations there. So I don't want to do a deep dive on you know, how scheduling works. If someone on the call would like to learn more about the intricacies of that, we can have somebody call you and walk you through that to your heart's content.
All right. Well, Jim, it looks like that's our last question for today. This is Brian Ankney again with AutoSuccess. I'd like to thank you for coming, Jim, and I'd also like to thank everybody that came and attended the webinar today. Please, you know, don't forget to join AutoSuccess webinars. It's a great place to interact with each other as well as learn about future webinars. I did record this webinar today, so if you would like to share this with somebody else in your dealership, you're going to get an email from me afterward, and I will you know, just reply to it, and I can get you a recording, and also I can get you Jim's contact information or someone at Xtime's contact information if there's more information you would like on scheduling or anything else that we touched on today. Jim, is there anything else you'd like to share with our attendees before we let them go?
No, I thank you for inviting me. Thank you for taking time out of your day to talk about what I think is an incredibly important topic in automotive. And don't be shy. If you'd like more information or you have some more questions but didn't want to come out with them in a public forum, you can get my email address from Brian. Happy to answer whatever questions we can.
All right. Well, Jim, thank you for taking your time out today. Thanks to everybody else. I hope you all come and attend a future webinar, and have a great afternoon. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.